There is 44.9 billion rands worth of unclaimed pension funds in South Africa that's owed to 4.5 million people. And this is according to the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. Over 20 billion rand was paid to more than 500,000 beneficiaries in the last 5 years, but the regulator believes that 40% of the unclaimed funds will not reach its owners. For more on this, I'm joined by Ms. Takalani Lukhaimane, who is manager at a Retirement Fund Conduct Supervision Division at the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. Thank you so much for your time today. Now, that is quite an alarming number, that 40% of the outstanding pensions are likely not to reach their final destination or their rightful destinations. Why is this so?
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for the time, Tammy. It's a very important issue that we're now trying to tackle in terms of expectations of members and even for those unclaimed benefits, because we have to deal with the fact that we've got inaccurate data, in certain instances, we don't have sufficient data to be able to trace, and by us, I mean the retirement funds. We don't have an ID number, for instance, because you would know that ID numbers actually only came in much later in terms of legislation. And so some people are unfortunately deceased. And so in terms of trying to track and use the identifiers that we had, whether it was a DOMPAS or a date of birth, is proving quite difficult if that person is no longer in the system. And ID numbers aren't necessarily also matched with the old identification numbers. So that is also proving to be quite difficult. And of that 40%, you also have people that actually don't know that they've got a benefit available to them, even as a beneficiary, on behalf of someone who is deceased. So you put that all together, you know, our history, you put together the fact that we are dealing with quite historic data, that in comparison to today's information, you know, the information age, is very difficult to understand why you wouldn't be able to trace someone. But we're dealing with 1980, 1990s, where we don't have as much data available as what we would today for a particular member.
As you describe this, my immediate question is it not logical and is it not a prerequisite for anybody who is employed and who is to be a beneficiary of a pension, for example, for the state to have all of the accurate information? If somebody can work and get paid, surely at some point that very same information will allow them to be accurately reflected within the system.
Yes, and that's why I made the distinction to say in today's information age, it would be very easy for us to be able to trace somebody. But if we're dealing with a majority, 90% of the unclaimed benefits that we are now discussing are in actual fact very historic unclaimed benefits. So in today's day and age, definitely, you know, you wouldn't have a situation where you don't have someone's contact details, for instance. But if we're dealing with an unclaimed benefit, as I said, we are in this case, in 1985, not everybody had cell phones, not everybody had an ID number. Like I said, you know, the identification documentation wasn't the same. And so as much as an employer might have had your information, we've got companies that have closed down as well. So going back to that reference point of an employer having all of your information, it's not all the companies that would have kept information related to where someone actually stayed. And if you take into account our history, you know, people came to metropolitan areas to gain employment, but used an address perhaps of where they were staying while they were employed. And when they terminated employment, went back to a rural area and are now sitting in a situation where we are unable to, or the fund is unable to trace them. And for the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, we're dealing with funds that are privately managed. So it is not state funds at all. So it doesn't cover the government employees' pension fund. So the funds also don't have that as a resource, if I could put it that way, in order to amplify their data.
So let me ask, Ms. Takalani, should one be listening right now and they are perhaps the descendant of or a family member of somebody who could potentially be a beneficiary, how do they find out if there are any monies due to a member of their family, or even themselves if they are if they were working in the 1990s and 80s?
Yes. So they would be able to approach our office, whether they use our website or they could use our toll-free number, and they would then be able to make an inquiry. What we have requested the retirement fund industry to do is to give us all of their unclaimed benefit data. So of that 4.5 million members that you have referred to, we now have a database where you as an individual might not have remembered 20, 30 years ago who the administrator of your fund was or where your fund is. So as a first point of call in terms of you locating your unclaimed benefit, we have then established this database that is free to all members of the public. So you can go onto the website and then complete your details, and the system will then automatically say to you there is a possible match for the information that you have provided us with, and you will then be able to be put in touch with the administrator, who will then validate or confirm that you are indeed an unclaimed, or you do have an unclaimed benefit, and then you would start the process to then be able to claim. So we assist people every single day, and also in completing forms. We've got a dedicated team of employees at the FSCA that only deal with unclaimed benefit inquiries as well. So you could either SMS or you could use a toll-free number, or you could also use our website. Like I said, it's free of charge. Unfortunately, we know that there are people that are making people pay to make these kind of inquiries. We're encouraging members of the public not to do that, and to rather contact our office to start the process to find out whether they've got a benefit payable to them or not.
Ms. Takalani, talk to us about the incidents of perhaps a family member who dies while they are in the midst of duty. Are there funds perhaps that are due to those type of people?
Yes, so your unclaimed benefits cover any benefit that you did not claim. So any benefit that you did not claim, so if someone was deceased in service and any of their beneficiaries did not claim their monies, then those monies are still due and payable to their beneficiaries as well. So they could still approach us and make an inquiry, and a benefit will be payable to them as beneficiaries. Once they've obviously been authenticated as well as beneficiaries, then they will share in the distribution of that person's benefit.
So what happens if a bulk of this money is not claimed? It's almost 45 billion rand. What happens to the money?
So our proposal, which is being considered as well by Treasury from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, and it's been our proposal for some time, is that we establish a central unclaimed benefit fund that will be tasked with tracing and paying members. So similar to what we've got now with the database, but at this point we don't actually hold the monies, and payment is not done by us, it's done by the retirement funds. So that fund would be responsible for tracing. And if there's any monies that have not been claimed, then that fund will have to decide. It hasn't been decided at this point. The proposal at this point is that money be kept in perpetuity. Obviously, we need to then see what efforts have been done to try and trace monies. And after a certain period of time, then that fund can decide whether they want to use it for social good. They could use it to build schools and libraries and any other socially responsible investments that they could make to uplift any communities that might have been affected by the unclaimed benefits or any other matter that might be brought before them.
As I let you go, Ms. Takalani, could you just repeat that or give us that toll-free number?
Yes, the toll-free number. The toll-free number is 0800 110 443.
0800 110 443. Well, thank you very much for this very important announcement. She is Ms. Takalani Lukhaimane, Manager for the Retirement Fund Conduct Supervision at Financial Sector Conduct Authority. That number again, 0800 110 443. Who knows, you might just be a beneficiary there or have a pension that is due to you. Let's recap now.